And I always have to repeat this story because when I went to school, which was 1962, tuition was $109.25 a term. And that's all the credits you could take. So anyway, I ended up going to Michigan State, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian because I was with the horses and stuff. And so I went in pre-med, and I took pre-med courses, and I always remember I took zoology. And the first class I went into, there were 800 and some students in that class. And the professor said, take a look at the person on the left of you, take a look at the person on the right of you. He said, I guarantee you, one of them won't be here, and you probably won't either. And so the second term, I did pass it, barely. The second term I went in, there was 143 people in the class. And he said, then only half of you will make it out of there. So that was my thing. I took those pre-med classes, and then I started working in the vet school at Michigan State, a part-time job, and I soon learned that I didn't really like snakes that much and rats and all that stuff. So I decided that I was not going to be a veterinarian because the money was in the small animals, not the large animals. I decided, well, I'll change my major, and I think I went into education next. And so I did that for 6 months, decided I don't think I want to do this either. And then I went into no prep, which I probably should have been in the beginning. And then I went into engineering. And then I heard about packaging. I didn't know what it was, but I heard about it. And I heard that people got really good jobs. So I looked at their curriculum and what I had taken, and all my science things fit into the technical option of packaging. So I decided that was what I was going to do, was go to packaging school. I will tell you, it dismayed my parents. Going all the way from, a kid who's going to be a veterinarian to one that was going to be packing groceries at the end of the line. And luckily, when I got started there, one of the professors, Pete Rayfield, we had an open house, and my parents came, and he says, I'll try to explain it to it so they'll think you're okay now, rather than just being a grocery boy. But anyway, after I graduated, I stayed on as a graduate assistant for a year, and then I was hired as an instructor. And so I stayed and taught at Michigan State for 7 years, and did research, more research than teaching. I taught the dynamics class at Michigan State. I worked for Jim Goff, and some people like Jim, some people don't like Jim. I got along with him very well, and that worked out for me because, as I've told a lot of people, and I didn't appreciate it at the time, but the guy changed my life, because if he hadn't have hired me, I would have probably gone to work and been like a lot of other packaging people, but got into dynamics, and we got along, and so I met all the guys that I'm here with today. I have to tell one story that I taught, like I said, I taught dynamics, and the prerequisite for that class was 4 terms of calculus and differential equations. And so if you're on technical option, that's what you take, or you took. And one day, this guy came in my office, and he said, well, I'm a management option student, but I'd like to take your class, but I don't have the prerequisites. I said to him, well, if that's what you want to do, that's fine with me. You just got to believe me for the first 2 weeks, because that's when we'll do a lot of the math stuff, and then after that it gets a lot more practical. So just take my word for it, this is how it works. Well, that student happened to be Dennis Young, who turns out to be one of the most technical people I know in the packaging industry, and has contributed greatly. But that's how Dennis and I met when he came in and said, I take your class. And I said, yeah, and he could teach me now. But Yeah, that was one of my biggest experiences. Before we had the fragility thing, we were doing some testing for Gerber baby food, and they gave all the baby food in a corrugated case with dividers that kept the bottles from banging into each other and breaking. And so they wanted to eliminate the partitions because, one, it would save a lot of money. So what we did with the shock machine was saying, well, if you could keep everything tight, then if it dropped, it wouldn't break. Because it turns out the bottles do have a glass coating on the outside. But so we proved through the shock testing that, you can drop these things, and if you get the case tight, then you can eliminate partitions. But the status at the time was that you have to follow all these government regulations for the trucking industry or railroad, Rule 41 or Rule 222, to use these kind of partitions and this kind of corrugated and all that. And so we said, well, this will work, and proved, showed them all the tests. So they wrote the rules around the fact that it had to be that kind of a bottle wrapped at this kind of pressure. But as this time is going on, you found out, if you do keep things tight, you really don't have to have all that packaging on the inside. And so that was, all these little experiences added up over years, but that was the beginning of my packaging career, which obviously changed my life. The people I met, I still, am in contact with, and I met my wife that way.